purpose of this space is to create a very safe environment for people to share a moment of their lives.
I'm Fender Benavides, sales and finance for drive promoters in Coquitlam. We have over 1,200 vehicles in our dealer group. Guaranteed financing available. No credit, bad credit, or new to the country. I am here to help. Salamat po.
Located 1 block north of St. Paul's Hospital, Downtown Denture Center features complete and partial teeth restoration options. With 35 years experience, Anthony Chung offers mobile services and emergency repair consultation 24 hours a day. Downtown Denture Center, just off Nelson at 970 Burrard in the lobby of the Electra Building. Foodie World has 75,000 square feet of imported and domestic products, with a large selection dedicated to our Filipino kababayans. With an in-house butcher, variety of seafood, and produce from around the globe. Open every day until midnight. Foodie World, 1 block east of number 3 Road off Sea Island Way in Richmond. Centrally located in the Richmond Auto Mall since 1984, Richmond Honda features a large selection of Honda certified pre-owned vehicles. Inside the showroom, Honda's newest models are displayed for viewing, and the dealership is staffed 7 days a week for financial consultation.
All the stories that you're going to hear tonight are personal in nature, some of which can encroach on dark topics as addiction, abuse, self-harm. And you may get triggered by them, and if you do, there's a beautiful lounge to the back of XY that you can go down, chill out, get your composure. When you're ready, you can come and join us. Welcome, everyone, to My Story Mondays. I'm your host, Winston Young. I had a lot of time to reflect on what's happening and what occurred to me when I spoke to all of the speakers and got introduced to their stories, that there is a fundamental theme that kind of popped up. Usually I can see it at the end of the show. This time I saw it at the very beginning, and that's a theme of change. Each individual speaker has their own version of it, and with this renewal coming in September, there's also going to be some changes at My Story Mondays, and if you would like to know what's going on, I just ask that you subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram, because it'll all be announced there. And I look forward to continuing this journey with you in September with a whole bunch of new concepts and ideas that are coming down the pipeline. So with that being said, in this whole theme of change, when I started this event to create the stage, it wasn't for me to share my journey and to share my story. It was to create a platform so people can come up and share a moment of their lives and impact someone else. Because there's someone in the audience or on the other side of the screen watching this on the internet or on TV that really probably sitting there is like, you know what, my life sucks, I'm going through this and I don't know what to do. And then they just self-isolate, the whispers go on in their head, and then they just feel really, really alone, and they get stuck and they don't know how to get out. I was one of those people on the outside, just flamboyantly viewed as a success. Internally, I was slowly killing myself every single day with alcohol and numbing myself, and then from that, the more success I gained, the more I hated myself, and the more I didn't want to deal with this pain. And then it just went into a roller coaster of hell for a good 10 years until I finally got a little glimmer of light saw a really good friend of mine get out, and with that, she gave me the belief that I could get out too. And that journey started in 2013, so 5 years ago. And while 5 years to some people sounds like a very small, brief instance of time in the Winston World time warp, I've gone through 5 or 6 lifetimes worth of change already. And the purpose of this, as with all the speakers that are sharing their stories tonight, is to try and make people understand that you're not alone. Your situation is not unique. If you don't resonate with my story, I hope you resonate with one of the stories that you're going to hear today on stage or on our YouTube channel, and realize that if you need to reach out and need some support, everyone is here for you. So with that, I'd like to introduce my first speaker. I followed his story when I first met him and was truly inspired by what he went through and how he came out of it. Every time I realized that, man, I'm going through some really tough stuff, I just have to look over and realize, well, maybe it's really not that bad if I adjust the scale. But not to compare myself to what he went through. It's understanding that it's all a matter of perception as to how you look at your circumstances. You can sit there and say, why in the world does this happen to me? Or look at it as like, okay, this is done, now what am I going to do? But there's also a secondary side to that, which a lot of people don't get to see, and I invite Paul Henczel to the stage to show what that is.
Thank you very much, Winston. It's always a pleasure to speak on this stage. For most of my life, I worked in the lumber industry, and I never would have imagined then that I'd be standing here talking to you now. 8.5 years ago, I was managing a sawmill when an incident happened that brought me to my absolute lowest point, physically and mentally. The obstacles I faced were extensive. One moment changed my life in so many ways and also set me on my new path. So I want to share how focusing on the positive aspects of your story can open up new opportunities. Here are just a few examples of how I chose to look at the supernatural in my circumstances rather than let myself get permanently stuck in my struggles. The definition of a miracle is a surprising and welcome event that is not explained by natural or scientific laws and is therefore determined to be the work of a divine agency. I experienced a near-death traumatic accident where I was crushed by 12,000 pounds of wood. I had logs on me and pushing up against me. That in itself is a tragedy you are not supposed to overcome. But I choose to look at that one moment this way. There were miraculous feats of strength occurring around me. One man pushed the last 3 logs off of me when he was rescuing me by himself. Those were the longest and heaviest ones, weighing approximately 4,000 pounds. That is one of those feats of strength fueled by adrenaline that just blows my mind. Here's something that goes along with that. When I was finally rescued from the machine I was crushed into, I wasn't breathing. I had been unconscious and without oxygen for 12 minutes. Every single person thought I was dead. But I suddenly and unexpectedly started breathing on my own, which was surprising to all who witnessed it. Here's an incredible miracle. This is the height of the space my entire head and upper body was crushed into. Only 5 inches. Now the width of my head alone is 6 3/8 inches. A skull is not supposed to have that much give to it. Now that immense pressure caused my entire head to be a deep purple, blue, and red color. That severe and deep bruising is called petechiae, and I had the worst stage you could have, which is usually only found post-mortem in strangulation victims. The miracles surrounding my head are just amazing to me. Here's something else. The CT scan showed my Adam's apple was crushed, yet I could still talk. The main doctor was shocked. Here's another fascinating miracle. It was determined that by the paramedics and the doctors that I was experiencing organ failure. That's what their main concern was. They could not find a consistent pulse anywhere on my body. When we were in the hospital, we learned that when your body gets crushed, it goes through what is called crush syndrome. It releases chemicals into your body, and in the worst case, can cause septic shock. My body was going through septic shock, and why I was being monitored around the clock. Now, septic shock is supposed to turn your bodily fluids a thick, dark brown color, yet my bodily fluids were clear. The critical care nurses were amazed at this. But there's one more miracle I want to share, and that's the people. I remember every single person who came to visit me in the months when I could barely move and couldn't leave my house. They listened to me, encouraged me, and supported me. Kids I used to coach football were now telling me, "You can do it, coach. I believe in you." Their support and prayers meant the world to me. See, encouragement fosters confidence. Wayne Dyer said, "If you believe it'll work out, you will see opportunities. If you believe it won't, you will see obstacles." The only thing that stands between you and what you want in life is the will to do it and the faith to believe it's possible. Now, I want you to think to yourself about the 5 questions I'm going to ask and see if any of these apply to you. Who here has had a physical injury of any kind? Who suffers from PTSD or anxiety? Has anyone ever had a concussion or brain injury? Who has asthma or lung disease? And has anyone ever suffered deep grief or loss? Now, I could see by the show of your hands, everyone in the room raised your hand to at least one of those questions. Now, each of those is isolating and challenging. I know firsthand because I'm left with multiple injuries. But I look at those as an opportunity for deeper connection because we can relate to each other through our challenges. Your story can help people. It will resonate with others. Allowing yourself to show vulnerability builds empathy and understanding. Now, making the decision to see the positives showed me the hope and possibilities in my situation. I realized this wasn't the end of my story, but the beginning. Practicing gratitude has gotten me through the darkest of times. In fact, the most powerful strategy which has made the biggest difference in my life, embracing and telling my story. I was able to heal and grow through the process of sharing my story with others. You don't have to let yourself get stuck in the pain of your story. And you don't have to wait for your story to be done to start sharing it. When you change your story, you change your life. And that's exactly what I did. I changed my story. Look to the person next to you and say, "Relax, your story's not over yet." Now, I've been able to achieve what most would say was impossible by focusing on what I can do and letting go of what I can't. In the last 2 years, I graduated with my Bachelor's of Business degree, authored my first book, Miracle in a Mill. I created Story Academy. I'm a certified practitioner and coach of neuro-linguistic programming, and I'm also trained in timeline therapy and hypnosis. You see, at the core of every achievement, there is an awareness of the difficulties that are present and having the confidence, persistence, and patience to realize your goals. Since I launched my book, I've spoken at well over 50 places, which included speaking on the TEDx stage. And coming up in October, I'll be speaking at the International Forum for Disability Management. The stories of struggles and challenges are the stories that need to be told. Be honest about your obstacles and how you overcame adversity. You can help and inspire people to reach higher, because everyone can relate to experiencing challenges. People will tell themselves, if they can do it, so can I. Your story can do the same for you. And there is something to be learned from each one of our experiences. Now, I think we need to spend more time and more resources on learning and telling better stories. In our personal lives, businesses, and social circles, storytelling is a skill that many don't have anymore, but it's all because we don't study, teach, and learn it. And thanks, Winston, for giving us the opportunity on this stage to share our stories. In 2006, there was a study published in the journal Neuroimage, and researchers in Spain determined that when it comes to inspiring people to understand a new change in themselves, storytelling is the only thing that works. Storytelling is one of the most powerful ways we have to communicate and motivate. We think in stories. It's the best way to make sense of and organize the information in our brains. Stories are going to give your message more context, purpose, and meaning. They encourage people to take action. Your stories will give you deeper and more personal connections with others. Stories are what I call connection magic. And they'll have you stand out because no one has the uniqueness of your story. And they're going to keep you remembered. I created a future for myself because I believe opportunities create stories and stories create opportunities. I have found my purpose in helping and empowering others to find their voice because I found my own. I challenge and encourage you to see the opportunities that lie in your own story. There's two ways to look at it. There's obstacles or opportunities. Remember, you have a story and your story matters. Thank you very much.
Paul Henczel, everyone. What do you do when life gives you a kick in the pants to say, hey, what are you doing? I can tell you more about my story at a future episode, but I invite Jennifer Henczel to the stage to share her story when she got a kick in the pants.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much, Winston. So I turn 50 this year, and to celebrate last week, I went skydiving. And for a few months, I went back and forth and struggled with whether I should do it or not. And my son, thank you. I'm going to need that way shortened. No? Okay. This is fine. So then my son said to me, Mom, the best way to approach these situations is to just trust that everything is safe and secure and you're working with professionals who know what they're doing and just have fun with it. And so that's what I focused on. So the day arrived and we went up in the plane and we went higher and higher and higher to 10,000 feet. And then I was doing just fantastic. I just kept telling myself all the way up that everything was safe, and in a few moments I was going to soar like an eagle. And then the door opened, and people started jumping out. And then it was my turn, nudging towards the door. I could see the curve of the earth and everything in between. We had to step out onto a step, right on the edge, on the outside of the airplane. We're standing on the step. The most frightening part was looking down 10,000 feet and taking that step off the airplane. But even though I was terrified, I made the leap. For the first few seconds, I had that falling feeling, like when you're on a roller coaster. But then it just felt like floating and flying. It was absolutely amazing, and the scary views turned into spectacular views, and the parachute opened when it was supposed to. And it was just absolutely glorious. And I landed safely. I did it. How cool is that? So I was so excited about that. But it made me think the most scary part in that whole process was just up here. It was one step in that entire process. And a few years ago, I made a similar leap with a huge mindset shift in my life. And it all started when one day I had a phone call that no wife wants to receive. And it was my husband's boss, and he said to come to the hospital right away because my husband had been in a horrible accident. All the way to the hospital, I thought, I'm not going to lose my best friend today. When I got to the hospital, I didn't recognize him. He was covered in blood. He was blue and purple. His chest was caved in. They told me his lung was punctured, and he had multiple breaks and fractures throughout his body. He didn't look good, and things didn't seem to be going well. But he survived. He's here tonight. And the days and weeks and months to follow were extremely difficult, years really, more difficult on him and the whole family. He was left with multiple injuries, and I had to drive him from doctor to doctor. And I was exhausted. But what really kept me going was I was motivated by my love's wonderful courage and strength and determination to turn his life into something good. And what really impacted me was I saw that the communities my husband had been involved in before his accident now rallied around and supported him. For example, he was a football coach and announcer, and football players and coaches would come around and say, "We're here for you, Coach Paul," and that really encouraged him. And, he had over 100 visitors in the first few weeks, over 100 visitors. Guess how many visitors I had? 0. Because I had let myself become isolated. I was stuck. Have you ever felt stuck? I had become stuck in my life and business. I'd always been a part-time entrepreneur, and I just was never able to break through to full-time. There was just something missing. But it was at this time, against all odds, I decided to take the leap and become a full-time business owner so that I could have the flexibility to care for my husband. And I did it. I thought to myself, how am I going to make a full-time paycheck month after month? But I did it. And it took 3 major mindset shifts that I experienced that really changed my life. And the first thing was I built a community. And I invited business owners to join me for lunch one day, and to my surprise that day, 50 business owners showed up. And it was clear to me that there was a need for deeper connection. And I found out that for anything to work, you need to be part of a community. And you have to build your own circle of support around you. It's not going to build itself. And people will help you if you show up to be helped. And so that one meeting turned into a group. And that group turned into multiple chapters throughout the Lower Mainland. And the reason is because people want to connect. And guess what? People want to connect with you. Point to the person beside you and say, people want to connect with you. People want to connect with you. Yeah. And it's all about what you can give, not take. And I learned how to collaborate instead of compete, because we're stronger together. Wouldn't you agree? And the second thing is, I had to learn how to be courageous. And I had to have the courage to admit to myself that ideas alone are not enough. Entrepreneurs have an abundance of overflowing ideas. But ideas don't do much unless you turn them into action. That's the only way to get results. Make no mistake, if you're going to change the world or create a movement, your reasons have to be stronger than your excuses. That's what I learned. No more excuses. The third thing is clarity. I had to have clarity around my passion and purpose. There's a lot said on those topics, and so I thought I knew. right? But there's a difference between knowing and doing. And so I had to really dig deep and discover what my passion was. And I really had to ask myself, what really fires me up? So if you don't know your passion, ask yourself, what really fires you up? What really makes you uniquely you? And then, you know, I really want you to know that you are a brilliant genius that has much to offer the world. And I'm telling you that because that's what I learned to accept in myself. You have gifts that the world needs, and there's no one else like you. When you've been hiding for a long time, leaving your comfort zone to meet new people can be very challenging. But I can tell you firsthand that we're meant to connect with people in deeper, more meaningful ways. My story is about a journey to connection, and I found out that connecting and collaborating with others works better for me than being isolated and working alone. You know the one step you need to take. I took it, and when you take that first step, I can tell you, it eliminates the fear. And when we take the leap with community, courage, and clarity, we find our dreams. Thank you.
I'm Fender Benavides, sales and finance for drive promoters in Coquitlam. We have over 1,200 vehicles in our dealer group. Guaranteed financing available. No credit, bad credit, or new to the country. I am here to help. Salamat po.